We are ready for understanding change. When we understand change, I think it's going to help a lot with how we relate to people. Let's talk a little bit about that. There is a Procasta, he came up with this model on change. This is on slide number 97. And each of these boxes is a different aspect of change, and it's important to realize right away that we don't just make changes in a linear fashion. We move from I really am not interested to I'll think about it, and then I'll make some change, and then maybe we drop off a little bit, and now we have to do some preparation again. And so we move through this process of change in bouncing back and forth to some degree. And I want you to understand what these different levels are. The first one is pre-contemplation. In other words, I'm not even thinking about change. And I bet you have people in your church like this. And when we understand that we have people like that in our church, it makes it easier to deal with it. When they say, not yet ready, I don't want to give up meat. You've got lots of people that are not. You know, a lot of our churches, they're not really interested in making those changes. Why me? I'm not even aware of the problems. In fact, I'll pretend like there's no problem. I won't, I can't. That's pre-contemplation. Well, let's say we have somebody that's in that stage. What if we move them, and through our conversation and our positive attitude toward them, they start thinking about it? Now, we don't see things happening too much in their lives, do we? Now they're still bringing meat to the potluck. But if they've moved to now in thinking about it, we are making changes. But we don't think that's a big deal yet. But it is. And so if we're seeing people who are slowly making some of these changes, and in their thinking, even before we're seeing it in action, we have to realize that's a success. I'd like to, but, so I'm already thinking about it at least. We're dealing with ambivalence. There's things I don't want to do. I don't want to be a vegan, but I know I need to start making some kind of changes. The next one is preparation. In other words, okay, you've convinced me. Now, let's start the process. I'm ready to change. I will. But I'm not doing it right now. I'm just kind of in preparation. So we set reachable goals, and this is a lot of times where we start the coaching. As we talked about coaching here earlier, we were looking at the aspect of preparation and getting ready, and those are important steps. Action is where we like to see people. I've stopped, I'm stopping my smoking. I'm cooking better. I'm exercising. That's unfortunately, that's what we see. Now we can see some action, and we don't think a person's successful until they've gotten to that point. But look how many steps we went through to get there. Then we have maintenance. In other words, okay, I've done it. Now it's regular for me. It's a routine. I'm doing it on a regular basis. The last one is actually actualization, where it's not even an issue anymore. It's part of my life. It's even more than maintenance, because now I'm kind of sharing with other people, and I'm supporting. I really don't need any help because it's just natural for me. So that is that part. Now, lapse, even though it's not a stage, is something people go through. And we need to understand how to deal with lapse, just because that's a place where we can lose someone in the process, where they think they've failed. And that's where the devil gets us too, where he says, oh, look what you just did. You're lost. Instead of, hey, you tempted me on that. Maybe I failed, but I'm going to get back on. And there's where we want to encourage people in that area. It's a temporary loss of motivation. We use a phrase in some of our training, which is opportunity for improvement. when I did the Stop Smoking program, and we had somebody who came in real sheepishly one day of the class, and it was because they had been doing really well on not smoking, and then he said, I don't know what happened. Before I knew it, I was at the gas station, had got some smokes, and had gone through half the carton. And I told him, I said, I'm glad that happened. Because we're in the middle of the program. We're here to support you. What do you learn from that? What caused that? Now we have a chance to talk about that. What if that happened later? We wouldn't have had that opportunity. So we use it as a temporary loss of motivation, but also we use it as a learning opportunity. And if we can learn something from it, it becomes a very powerful opportunity. We should actually be glad sometimes when those things happen because we can learn from it. And as we talk to our people that we're coaching and they didn't make it one week, then we can look and say, wow, that's an opportunity. Tell me what you think caused that to happen, because obviously you don't want that to be happening. And we can talk about it and learn something. So I think lapses are great opportunities. We actually have what we call an action paradigm, and that is we have based for 30 or 40 years or more, we have based almost all of our programs around action. You know, are they cooking better now? Have they stopped smoking? You know, are they exercising? Those are all action focuses. And many times we would not say that our program was successful until people had reached action. But only 90% of our programs are designed that way, and fewer than 25 or 20% of people who are coming to the program are actually prepared for action at any given time. So here we're gearing our program for a very small group of people and are thinking, but our programs can be successful because we are moving people along the process of change. But it's important for us to realize that don't just look at action as an indication of success. We have to look at little steps as being good. So again, the practical application, don't equate action with change. Gear your program for all stages. And here's the place I would like to mention this. When I present health to our church, and I do it not even in a church setting too, I'll ask everybody, how many of you want to be healthy? Everybody raises their hands. And I'm thinking, wow, as the health ministries director for the conference and for the person who is health ministries director for the church, we should be the most popular people around. Because everybody wants to be healthy, and we're here to help them. But what's often happened is when health conversations come into the church, we get division. We get these people who say, well, I don't want that, and this person's really off in extreme. I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to go to any of the programs that they're putting on. And often the reason is because that director, that person is focusing on change and only sees success for the people who are changing and doing it like they're doing. So we are effectively helping 20%, if that many, of our church and ignoring the other ones. When we start dealing with all stages in our church, there was somebody in the back of the room who raised his hand, now I want to be healthy, but when we started talking about diet, he got a sneer on his face and said, I'm not going to do anything on that. But I bet he's one of those who's maybe willing to think about changes at his pace with his interest. I don't want to throw him out or throw him under the bus, as we say today. I would like to gear a program so that that person who's starting to think about changes will feel comfortable and not alienated because the only thing I'm going to teach is a vegan cooking class. And there's no way he's ready for that. And the neat thing about coaching is that I can develop a relationship with that person at the level that he's ready or she is ready for. So I go up to them and say, I notice you raise your hand, you want to be healthy. I think everybody wants to be healthy. How can I be there for you on the stages that you are interested in? I didn't even mention meat. I just said, I bet there's things you would be interested in on work. Obviously, to get health, we have to do something. What are some stages and some things you would be interested in moving toward that would bring you health? Wow, I would love to see our churches having a leader in health that is there for everybody. And everybody starts becoming excited about it at their pace. So you see, this action paradigm, I think, is the answer to why it hasn't been working. We need to tailor our approach to the individual stage. And we have half of the church or more who aren't interested in what we're teaching. And we can say, yeah, they should be there. You know, they're Adventists and we believe in health and they're not there. What a tragedy. We could do that, but it's not going to solve the problem until we actually come down to their level and accept them where they're at and let them help that. So keep in mind the individuals are at different stages. We need to gear the programs for that and not just have programs that are for change action. And they need to move from one stage at a time. And we can't jump them from pre-contemplation where they're not even interested to action. They've got to think about it for a while. So if I see that half of my church is not interested in making changes, then what are some things I would do that would start them thinking about it? Now I showed a video, I started doing this when I preach a sermon. I've got this 3-minute video that actually shows how 70% of people die from heart attacks with no symptoms at all. Well, you know, that might be a little bit rough, but I didn't tell them what they had to do. All we want to do is start thinking about, am I one of those? Could that happen? And I show them that even if your doctor says everything's okay, I don't have any angina, blood is flowing through the blood vessel, but it's the lining of the blood vessel that can rupture and cause a clot immediately with no symptoms at all. And so I just tell them, it looks like we just have to make good choices and not necessarily just do, make sure that the doctor's checked everything out for us. And that cholesterol is a very interesting thing. We're learning new things about it all the time. It used to be we just look at one number. And then we found out that, wow, this person has high cholesterol, but most of it is the good cholesterol. And the reason I bring this out is because just being checked out, just having tests is not the answer, even though that's a good thing to do. We still have to do the right thing even when we don't have any symptoms. And that's why even if we looked at the cholesterol levels and stuff, I would encourage people that they still are not safe. There's other things that may happen. Just having the extra fat level, for instance, maybe your cholesterol level is okay with your diet, but because of your extra fat intake, you're insulin resistant. So now I have diabetic problems when my cholesterol was still okay. So the bottom line is make good choices for the future, and as opposed to just getting checked out. Anyway, that's a practical implication. A little bit more on there that we'll look at is keep in mind that a large part of the change has to do with thinking. Remember that video I just showed you that we didn't record, but that man was saying, I'm not losing weight as fast as I'd like to, but the mind is changing. He got it. He realized that that was the important thing that would carry him through for all the changes he was looking for as well, the thinking. And so as we start thinking about changing the thinking with the people we're working with, we're going to be much better off as well. So don't neglect fundamental aspects of change, such as exploring values, identifying obstacles and strategies. Those things are just as important as seeing a person make changes. Sometimes a person will make changes, but his thinking process hasn't changed. And what will happen? He will go right back to what he had. So changing the mind is going to be better. The same thing with people coming into the church. They might be convinced that you're right theologically, and so I'll come, but their attitude towards God hasn't changed. And so they'll end up leaving. So you got them to make the change you wanted, but the brain and the mind did not change, and the same thing happens on health too. So we talked about that. There's also behavioral change pyramid, and I'll just show you. This is a pyramid we used in our training that I took. And as we look at that, it is important to realize that, oh, and there is a picture of that in your handout. Just look for it later. I'll just show you here. So as we look at that, establishing the vision is the foundation to build on. And we started with that, the vision or the dream. We looked at obstacles and strategies and values, and we built that foundation to start with. Once that foundation was there, we built on that by saying, let's prepare now to make a change. Let's put a plan together, and let's get support and some commitment. And then we end up with action, where we have, and now when we start with action, we start seeing some rewards and problem solving, and we look at that. And then as we have results, sometimes we have relapse that might be involved, because we've gotten up to that point, and you can drop down, and now you have to work on those foundational things again. And then as a person finally makes all the changes, they kind of have a new me, and we celebrate, and it's a little more solid there. But that's a process, and sometimes we just kind of grab one of these things and try to jump right into it, when there's a process of change and growth that we need to make. So looking at that pyramid once in a while as you're working with someone would be a good idea to say, do we have a good strong foundation to start with? As we talk about a readiness to change, there's two keys that we'll look at. One is the motivation for change, and the other is the confidence level. And if a person is not real motivated, the internal process is not driving them, we can talk all we want to, and they're not going to make the change. And so you have to say, how can I motivate them? It may not be an internal thing for them. I have to help them with the process. Or a person says, wow, I'm really motivated, but there's no way I'm going to make it happen. See, their confidence in achieving that is not there either. So both of those aspects will stop them from making change, but we have to treat them differently. As you look at this with motivation, if I don't have any motivation and don't have any confidence, then a person says, I can't and I don't want to. But what if we have a lot of motivation? They say, I can't, but I want to. So I want to, but I don't have confidence to do that. Then they're kind of stuck as well. Or a person says, I can, I really could do that, but I don't care. Yeah, I could cook that way, but I don't want to. And so when we get both of those working together, we have I can and I want to. So obviously that's where we want things to be. This list is an important one for you to have, and that's on page 35 of your information. And the reason I'd say it's important is because each of these on this list, these are things we can do to increase motivation. Here are things we can do to increase confidence. So if you find somebody who's not motivated, at least in my puny brain, I find out that I can't remember what to do for motivation. And so I go through this and say, wow, I'd really like to get some motivation going here. How could I do that? And so I look at things like a safe atmosphere. So I find out that, well, they could make those changes, but in their home environment, it looks like it'd be hard to do. So the atmosphere is not what it needs for motivation. And you'll see empathy and unconditional acceptance and all of those things where a person starts a motivation. I say, man, I'm not sure what we did wrong. Why aren't they motivated? And then as I look through this list, I say, you know what? I guess we never defined why they weren't motivated. Or I might look at it and say, I need to tell them some more stories about success. You see? So now I have opportunity to look through this and say, wow, I didn't even remember that this was a need, and I didn't even share with them on that. Or I didn't give them any stories of success. They never could see what the potential was. And so using that list, and obviously you're not going to remember all this stuff, but using that list you can go back and say, this guy is not motivated. Okay, I'm going to go to page 35 in my storage. Oh, there's some things I could have done. Or then they say, they don't have confidence. I've got all these things that we can do that's on that list that can help build confidence. So I'm not going to go through all the details on that, but to say, okay, you got some materials that's going to help you later on when you run into those issues. Does that make sense? So practical implications. Tailor your approach to what an individual needs, whether they need confidence or motivation. And the last thing on this understanding change is components of a successful plan for lifestyle change. As you look at it, you already know it. You're setting up a vision, you're using SMART goals, you're doing action steps. And in fact, we even started way back yesterday, when we said there's only 3 things you have to remember is that dream, long-term goals, and then action steps. And that comes right back to that. Let's look at a case study because it's kind of fun to see someone else being coached a little bit. A single person is 50 years old. They're an accountant, 5'3", not too tall. 180 pounds, that's a little bit like a ball maybe. Not too tall, but pretty wide. They have a BMI, which is body mass index, thank you, of 32, which is higher than it should be by quite a bit. What is it, 20 to 25 is the ideal. Anti-anxiety medication. This person's got some problems, looks like. Hypertensive, elevated cholesterol levels. We were talking about that a little while ago. And new diagnosis of diabetes. Does this person need us? Okay. But she came. She wants to be coached. So here's a wellness vision. So a coach is helping her set a vision so what it looked like. Now I wouldn't necessarily recommend the vision to be a weight loss, but she did, so we'll stick with that for now. 30 pounds she wants to lose, have more energy, and improve her health. Sounds pretty basic, doesn't it? But that's okay. That's a nice vision. Her 3-month wellness goal, exercise. Now you'll notice we have kind of the perfect plan now, and I was glad that we were able to do a little coaching before you saw this so that you could be yourself instead of trying to fit into something that we said this is the ideal way to coach. Okay. So her goal in 3 months from now is to be exercising 30 minutes 3 times a week. She wanted to eat a healthy breakfast 5 days a week, eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, drink 8 glasses of water each day. Man, she's got lots of things, a lot more than we were looking at earlier. Read the Bible for 30 minutes. Remember we talked about stress? That was one of the things she wanted to do. So the coach really gave her a lot of different things. These were all the things she wanted to change. And this was a 3-month goal. So we're not going to do all those tomorrow. But it's not bad to have, it's probably okay to have that many things if they're the 3-month goal. Case study, first week. This was the first week they set up an action step and they scheduled an appointment at Curves to discuss membership. Were they doing any action yet? It's preparation. I guess we could consider it action. But we were doing preparation. I like that, okay? Because now we're going to set up a way that she can exercise instead of just jump right into it. Keep a food diary for 1 week. Is she making any changes yet in dietary? No, just preparation. Number 3, set a timer for every 2 hours at work to remind me to get it and go to the water cooler. Now we're actually seeing some changes, but it's still kind of preparation stuff, isn't it? On drinking more water. Move the television out of my bedroom. She was probably having a hard time getting to sleep at night, and the coach, this is one of the things they came up with. So it was a lot of preparation, but you can see some of the changes. That's a lot of changes to make, but some of them were easy because they were preparation and things, and so she got right into the program. This is a follow-up session. Throughout the program, she moved into joint problem solving. In other words, we were sharing together between her and her coach to solve problems. When she made some failures, quote, we called them learning opportunities. So the coach was helping her not get into some depression with that. Setting up system to maintain motivation. So we looked at some of the different motivation issues, and she wasn't really as motivated, so we said, what are some things that would help her? Now one of them might be as she kept track of her progress. So having a tool would help her with that. Reconnecting with her wellness vision. Every once in a while you say, what is that vision that you have? And uncovering negative talk, self-talk. Every once in a while she would say, you know, I'm just too fat, or this is never going to work. And so the coach could say things like, well, I know you feel that way, but is that going to help you towards your goal? Or should we be looking at what we're doing positive? Or, you know, so there may be a way of uncovering that negative talk. Understand the process of successful behavior changes. So we're seeing what is it that's helping us make those changes and be successful in that. And creating a supportive environment for change, we're going to look at what is her environment around that. And for instance, if she's going to the gym, that's part of the environment. We're making that positive. Role-playing potential troublesome situations. So she might have said, you know, this next week I'm going to be going over, you know, for a trip, and I don't know what we're going to eat. And say, let's talk about that, and let's think about how you would react in that situation. So you do a little role-playing. So you see, here you can see some coaching taking place that you maybe haven't even learned yet. And then we plan action steps for the next week. So this would be a typical follow-up session where you'd look at some of those type of things. It looks like it's pretty heavy, but at least it gives us a bigger picture. And then we're planning for the next week. After 3 months, so that's the place where we wanted to see how is she doing towards those 3-month goals. She lost 15 pounds, normal blood pressure, off diabetic medication. This is a real case as well. Ready to decrease anti-anxiety medication. So that would be up to the doctor probably, but she was feeling like she may not need it. Exceeded 2 of her 3 months goal. You know why she didn't achieve one of them? Because she set 30 pounds as the goal. And that's why I wouldn't have set it there. She had lost some weight. We should have been able to see that as a positive thing, but here it actually kind of came back as a negative thought because it had been set as a, and met the other 3 with 80% of the time. So we saw the process, we looked at it later back and saw, wow, 3 months, you did very well, so you wouldn't give up there. So see what we're doing with this person. This was 3 months. We typically don't follow people like that. Look what happened because we were willing to coach and to follow this person after a health program. Developed a relationship, she's making changes. This never would have happened if they just came to the program and then it's over, see you later. Every one of our health programs need to have good follow-up with trained coaches. And the vision and goals also provide a roadmap. So we're seeing that roadmap. After our break, we're going to spend some time on some very specific skills that we haven't looked at yet. One of those is discovering the needs that a person has. How do I actually find out what their needs are so I can gear toward that? We're also going to talk a little bit more about motivation, how to motivate somebody, and there's a couple other things. Then we're going to look briefly, I think we'll have time to get all these in, we're going to look at how do I bring the spiritual in to coaching, and the other is how do I give health medical advice? How do I involve health principles without stepping over the line and getting too much medical information? So those are the things we'll cover after the break, and I think we'll have time to get all those in, and then